Hello everyone, so I just wanted to do a little bit of an extra note to my There Is No Meta video because I think there's something that I didn't communicate effectively enough and I want to talk about it. So, a while back, some of you guys might remember that I did a video talking about two meta weapons that I think should stay in the meta, which was Splash and Ballpoint Spotlight, if I can find wherever Ballpoint is. I don't really play this weapon. These two kits specifically. Not either of their second kits. And that video is a good reference point for what a strong kit is. So I'd recommend anyone rewatch that. But to summarize, a strong kit has a few attributes. One, synergy. The main, sub, and special work together with each other. You know, burst bombs and crab shots combo, burst bombs make up for splash range, etc., etc. And then 2, 3, and 4 are the strong main weapon, sub weapon, and special weapon. So for example, Reef Slider would not count as a good special for a weapon and a strong kit, even if it is on a weapon with good synergy, because it is still a Reef Slider. The problem with this game right now is that there aren't a lot of kits that are like that. There are some, like V-Shot, like NZAP 85, like Rapid Deco, Splash, Ballpoint, Try, but there's not too many. And again, stuff like Clash doesn't count. This is a synergistic kit, but the main weapon is weak. Barella, for example, would not count, because the main weapon is weak, even if the kit is synergistic with itself. It's because of these requirements that this list tends to get a bit harsh. And on top of that, there are plenty of weapons with good kits that still require compromises for a team comp. For example, Splatoon Stamper has a good kit right now. Main sub special very strong, very good synergy with each other. But Stamper is still a weapon that has some obvious holes. It's a bit slow. It can't really paint for itself. Like, it can paint well, but it's not going to cover the map like a shooter. Like, this thing isn't going to be responsible for painting around the entire stage. It still requires line of sight, just to be on target. You know, small things. They're not that big a deal, and the main one is really the paint and how it affects team comms. But because of that, Stamper isn't something you can just run and then have everything covered. You are picking around the Stamper. Typically, you'll want something like Tri Nouveau to, like, this weapon can fight up close really well, the fizzies are really good to combo with Stamper, etc., etc. Weapons like Splash and Ballpoint don't require this. They are the things the rest of your comp is built around. Even now they're like that, it's just easier to run comps that counter either of these weapons. Like, there's good anti-crab comps, or good anti-jetpack and BP comps with Pencil. So these still do what they did in that video, they're still in a solid spot, but you can run comps to where you might think about switching off either of these. You can't just pick them all the time, which is fine. The problem is there's not a lot of weapons like this in the game, and so we're seeing a lot of comps that don't have it. We're seeing comps with, like, mediocre kits, like Nautilus, for example, where Nautilus is a strong main weapon with the decent sub and special, but not too much kit synergy. There's a little bit with rain comboing with it, and Sensor is just generally useful anyway. It's on a weapon that has enough range, so you don't really need a lot of the utility a bomb provides on a weapon like this, but it's not perfect. And so a lot of comps have weapons like these where it seems like mostly there. Like Roller, which is pretty solid, but, you know, this doesn't have any entry, so you need stuff around it. Roller doesn't paint very well, etc. There are a lot of weapons in this game that at the highest level are, okay, we need things to either exemplify this weapon's strengths or play around its weaknesses. Like, the number one example will be ZF versus the new Pencil kit. I've seen so many people say they're going to outclass each other, but, like, ZF and the new Pencil want completely different comps. The things you run with Charger are self-sufficient weapons, things that kind of paint and go around, and weapons that do their own thing, because this is a one-shot. It's not really a team-dependent weapon. Whereas Pencil likes to run things like triple aggro because of the cooler, but I guess that's not a thing with the new kit, right? It wants to run things that'll combo off the rain, that can paint zone with the rain, that can combo off of the main weapon's damage, like typically mid-range weapons. It wants some form of AoE. It wants weapons that can have an easier time moving in with its paint. Even though they are both wall painting special splatter scope range type weapons, they want different things. Okay, so where does this go when we're talking about the video? Oh, and Squeezer's another good example. Squeezer is really hard to fit into comps. It's the one problem it has, because this kit is not very synergistic, even if it's all strong individual pieces. So that's a good example of lack of synergy, I guess. Squeezer does actually need some poking and painting tools, and Wall is limited on it because of that, and Zuka can be kind of awkward at times. But that's a discussion for another time. what I tried to point out in the video is there's not a lot of kits that are like that. Part of the reason Fiesta's comp worked really well because they ran a lot of kits like that. They had a V-Shot, a Tri-Nouveau, a Rapid Blaster Deco, which still has jetpack output, but like it's still Torp Inkjet on a Rapid. That's still ridiculous. And a V-Dually. They're kits that work with each other really well, that's synergistic, that's strong, and that gave them an edge. That is one spectrum to where the meta is leading towards. And the problem with Splatoon 3 is they haven't really decided what kind of kits they want. For every kit that's as good as something like a Splash, there is a kit like a Neo Sploosh in the game. In Splatoon 1, the best weapons of the game were on one side. Let me try and... I guess I'll draw this out on a random Sendo Ink map if I can pull this up. Nope, it's gonna freeze my whole computer. Nice. Anyway. I guess I can draw this in-game. Let me get ink brush. We're gonna use some artist skills to remake something I made on stream a long time ago. So, if I draw this line out, you know, let's just say this is a line of powerful from least to most powerful. Splatoon 1's top tiers ended up here, at the very end of the spectrum, where you had powerful subs, powerful specials, powerful mains with good synergy that was broken. That's like Splat Bomb, S1 Kraken, S1 CRB is ridiculous in its power. And then meanwhile, Splatoon 2 is all the way over here. It's on exactly the opposite end. There's a few kits that are good, but like the K-Shot is good because it spams a lot of missiles and missiles is good. K-52 is like one of the only weapons with actual powerful kit, like that and Squeezer. And still a lot of that is kind of bloated into the main weapon being overtuned. Splatoon 3 is kind of all over the place. It's trying to be in the middle of these two games, obviously, but it hasn't decided where it wants to be. Stuff like Splash and Ballpoint is over here, like very close to Splatoon 1 level. You have stuff like 96 Deca, which is kind of there, like Roller and stuff like that with their kits. And then progressively, you have things that are a lot down here. You have some truly awful kits like Beacon Whale Sploosh that's in the game. And every Splatoon game has had this kind of separation of kit power. Like, I'm not trying to say that every Splatoon 2 weapon was here and every Splatoon 1 weapon was there. But the spread of the kit power of relevant weapons in the game was a lot tighter. The difference is, a lot of these weapons with, like, solid but not amazing kits are actually picked. It's not like Splatoon 2 where a lot of the weaker weapon kits would just not be played at all because it was, like, impossible to make them work. There are a lot of weapons with mediocre kits that are totally pickable in this game because there's not a lot of strong options. And so you have a lot of comps that have a lot of holes in it that get very annoying. It always feels like you have to change stuff around. And having to change your weapons too much is a problem. Having to switch around things and counterpick comps 24/7 is an issue. I talked about the rock, paper, scissors meta of Splatoon 2 being good with like end parry, blaster, and Brella. But it worked well enough because you could pick all of those options and none of them got invalidated. But say that Blaster got completely outclassed by Dooley and Brella, but it's still really good into everything else. Now you have a problem where you have one weapon that's really good, but if they ever pick paper, you can't pick the weapon and you're screwed. In a much smaller scale, that is what we're seeing here, where some main weapons are getting invalidated if you happen to run into the wrong comp. Because every comp has decent holes, and if someone happens to counterpick a comp that exploits you, you can get screwed over on the weapon select screen. It's not that bad right now, but it will probably get worse as time goes on. In the same way, a comp like Fiesta is winning is probably a good indicator that we're going to move toward picking more things with stronger kits, and the amount of diversity we see in what other weapons you pick is going to start to drop off a little bit. And that's not even talking about the lack of diversity in playstyles, which is what I want to get as a really important factor. Meta is not just what weapons are picked. Meta is about strategies. There is not a lot of them right now. There is a humongous lack of diversity in different playstyles. And that's its topic for another time. I know this was mostly a negative rant, but I want to get it out there that the negatives are a lot harder to see. This video topic was a difficult one to cover in a way that could be understood by everyone. This is a very high-level problem. This is mostly top-level players talking about it, which is why I tried to show a lot of reference tweets from it during the video. At lower levels, comps with holes in them don't get exploited as much. Even in mid or even high levels of play, I have seen plenty of comps that would just lose to a good enough comp and team who knows how to play around it, and it just doesn't happen. And so a lot of this discussion is about a meta that most people who play the game are not experiencing. And you can base your own experience off it, but at the end of the day, what people are using at top level and what the meta is there is different than mid-level, low-level, solo rank, etc. And there is a meta everywhere. There's a meta in C rank. It's shoot all the people running face first at the objective because they're all running face first at the objective. You can't miss them. That's a strategy. It's not about weapons. And you could do that with anything. So, this game still has a lot of problems we need to get through, and mainly, kits and maps are the two big things that I've stressed. We need more kits that you can actually build comps around and plug holes in, so you can still run a lot of the other stuff, but in comps where that weapon won't just get invalidated if the other team switches to the right comp, or counterpicking doesn't become too important, or you don't have to have comps that just don't feel satisfying in general, even if there is decent variety. And then, of course, the other one is the maps. Because obviously the maps do a similar job in limiting variety, and a lot of the kits we have in the game would be better on better maps. That's just kind of how it works. So, at the end of the day, I think I still covered the topic really well, but I hope this better explains some of the more negative attributes we're dealing with, mainly with the kits thing, and that's partially why I really hope third kits happen in general. There is still a lot to like about this meta, and I'm glad that a lot of people are enjoying watching it, as was evident in 20XX, so that's great to hear, you know, outside of some of the all-modes jank that's been happening with Tack and Kraken. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys are enjoying it, that's cool. I just want to point out that, you know, don't be surprised if there are some more top-level players making tweets, like, complaining about stuff, because there is still stuff to dislike. This meta did a lot of stuff better than Double Crab meta, but Double Crab meta did have more effective comps. It felt a lot more stable. It felt a lot more like the team skill against each other and not what composition was going against each other, etc. There's a lot of different factors like that, and, you know, this meta's in a good spot, but there's definitely stuff that needs to happen for it to get better, and I just wanted to kind of point out that, hey, there are still a lot of problems with this, and most importantly, this phase of there is no meta will not last. Even if there were no patches or no new updates or anything, there not being a meta is a temporary state of the game. It's lasted long enough to influence what people are picking right now, but eventually there will be a strategy that rises up, and we might have already seen it. Maybe what Fiesta was running is already there, and we just don't know it yet. So, when this state eventually wears off, and we enter an actual meta, it does still need to be a good one. Meta is still inevitable, and at the end of the day, building a balance of the game that allows the right things to be meta is still going to be important, especially when content stops and things do develop into something that will last for a long time. Anyway, that's just a little footnote on the video. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all the support in the main channel video, and let's talk about update stuff this week. See you guys.